Hi, I'm Pat Scheffler, and I'm privileged to serve as one of the elders here at CCG. And this is my wife, Pat.
Hi, and I am on the Women's Shepherding team.
And this is our story of our experience in our life of tithing and God's goodness in it and how that came about. And that story actually begins even before we were married. We were in college together, we got engaged the year that Pat graduated, and I had at least one more year to complete my degree. And Pat was going to be our breadwinner. She had a job in Chattanooga teaching school, and that was going to be our salary. I had work study, but it was minimal. So Pat was going to be taking care of us, and her parents insisted that she come back home here to Burlington that summer so that they could talk her out of marrying me, which didn't work. And but while she was here at home by herself, she went to a missions conference at Northside in Burlington, and she felt compelled, committed to commit a double tithe of her salary that she's going to work as earn as a teacher that year to Northside's mission program. And of course, this is back in the dark ages. We're communicating by phone and letter, and we're on having a conversation one day. And she tells me that she's made this commitment without talking to me. And so that was our first interaction with trying to figure out finances as a couple.
And I think in my defense, it does sound kind of crazy what I did. I thought $8,700 a year was an amazing amount of money as a brand new professional. And also I wasn't used to thinking about finances as a couple. I was just thinking about what I needed to take care of. So I had a lot of learning to do. And so that was why we were so glad when our pastor came to visit us. I would say that was the first time we got counseling in our newlywed year. Not the last.
Not the last.
We told him our story, why we weren't tithing to the church and what we were doing. And Fred was so understanding. And he said, you know what, it's hard to tithe. It can be a struggle, but you're doing the right thing and keep on keeping on. So we appreciated his empathy.
We did. And of course we continued to do that. After a year passed, we returned to a single tithe of what we were all earning. And then we did that through graduate school and postdoc and my first jobs. And I remember, now I'm a young husband, and I've got a real job, and Pat was so happy when I finished school and got a real job. And I was the one who's a breadwinner now, and thinking as a young husband, if I could just make X, life would be so much easier. And then 3 or 4 or 5 years later, found out I was making X, and the pressures were the same, if not greater. But through all that, we continued to tithe, and our experience was that God provided what we needed when we needed it. Sometimes we didn't know where it was coming from or how we were going to pay our bills, but it turned out that when it came down to it, that we had what we needed.
And we also would have a missions conference, and there would be in the early March at our church, and there would be a plea to increase your giving and to give to the mission work of the church. But I wanted to do that with what I was making as an adjunct college professor, but I never knew until the end of March if I was even going to have a job. And I almost felt like I was jumping off a cliff when I would sign the card and say what I was giving. But the Lord always provided me with a job and additional responsibilities that provided. And it made me think about that scripture from Luke that I love, Luke 6:38. Give and it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be put into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured back.
And now we're retired after all that career, and we're on a fixed income, and that's a difficult situation to be in with regard to tithing, because one way of looking at things is that you've already tithed the money that you put away, but that's not the appropriate attitude. We still have other sources of income minor, but we continue to tithe, and God has continued to be faithful, and we've discovered through a lifetime of tithing that you cannot outgive God. And the thing that I think of is the verse in Malachi. And, you know, Malachi is the last book of the Old Testament, and God knows he's going to be quiet for the next 400 years or so until the birth of Christ. And it's almost like he's making a plea to the Israelites. Do this one thing. Bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, that might be bread in my house. And test me in this and see if I will not open the windows of heaven and pour out in abundance till it's overwhelming. And that's been our experience. There's always been a sense of fear is really the word that I would use, but it's not fear, just of anxiousness with regard to where money's coming from. But God has always been faithful to us, given us all we need and more than we can even have imagined in a lot of cases.
And we always say,
you cannot outgive God. You cannot outgive God, exactly.